First, though, we're going to welcome in the good doctor because we've been discussing for the last few weeks divorce and the impact of divorce. And I think the impact of divorce on others is really the focus today because you've got two people who've decided they just, can't do it anymore. And that affects one and the other, maybe not equally, but it affects them. But it can affect other people too. And now we're talking about children. The good doctor is Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services of East Lansing, drjohnb.com for the podcast, and in the flesh this morning with us. Good morning, sir. Welcome back. Hope you're having a good day.
Well, actually, in fact, the sun's already out, and it's going to be a very good day. How does that sound?
Absolutely. I'm in concurrence with you. Simpatico 100%. But sometimes people aren't in simpatico with one another, and divorce can become inevitable. How do you make it so that it works out on those who are, let's say, unintended consequences, unfortunately, of that divorce?
Well, I think we want to preface this, and I think you mentioned it, that there is a time that divorce is reasonable. We're looking at abuse, philandering, constant arguing, and irreconcilable differences between the couple. We realize that divorce can be, preferable and even necessary. But with that said, we really have to be aware, Dave, that the children of divorce too often have to deal with so many other factors that children in a stable, home do not have to, stable in terms of both parents. They're losing one or both parents for significant periods of time, weekly, monthly, or any time agreement that parents of the courts agree to. Downsizing of home and other financial changes that really can range from small to severe financial restraints. Separation can occur from beloved family members from one or both families. There can be at an extremely negative level, subtle or outright attempts at parental alienation. There can be limited interactions and even ending friendships due to emotional distress of the person when the child's going through a lot of stress themselves and change. There's also shame, anger, depression, anxiety, PTSD. There can be poor academic performance, insecurity, and unfortunately, guilt. Many children actually end up with guilt for the breakup of the parents. Their feelings of loss. There can be poor relationships with the opposite sex or partners that can exist for a lifetime. This is another very fortunate thing. There can be physical problems, physical acting out, emotional acting out. And one of the most difficult things is the necessity to adapt to step-parents and step-siblings. And it's important to note that blended families are a primary source for even follow-up divorces. So when you really look at this, children of divorce really have to deal with a lot of things when their parents decide to leave. I think a lot of times parents really need to take that into account and see, is there any way they can really save this relationship? Because children get used to being with two parents. They want to love two parents. They want to be loved by two parents. And when you get divorced, the data is really pretty stark, pretty devastating. We can certainly find positive aspects, which we can talk about a different week. But as far as the impact, these are things that occur. So it is really important to just be aware of that. And we do have to try to be helpful to children. But it's a pretty difficult road for even millions of children. And we find this when we talk to older persons of divorce in terms of the impact that it had on them.
You mentioned blended families. I've known some that seem to work it out very well, and I know very well another where it didn't work out at all. We might have grown up watching the blended family, the Brady Bunch, but it doesn't always pan out like a sitcom that way, right?
Well, that's true. Some years ago, I did a two-part in-service at People's Church, actually, on blended families, and it was kind of enlightening even then, and it's still true now, of course, that blended families are very, very difficult, particularly if one spouse has different persons coming in to the relationship, that the child has to not only adapt to a step-parent, which could be conflictual with the actual parent, but you're also dealing with other children coming in, call them stepchildren, part of the blended family. And this can be very, very difficult. And I might add is primary cause for a second or third divorce, okay, as far as that goes. So that is a very, very difficult thing for children to adapt to. And a lot of times, I think parents really aren't aware. They think it'll even be better. But look now, with a, quote, parent that is not that good, the other parent will bring someone else into the relationship and it can be just toxic, because the child can be wanting to have a secure relationship with the parent that is at this time finding another person. I don't want to say in all cases, Dave, but in my work, obviously, anecdotally, I've dealt so many times with devastation.
Is it, now we know that for couples divorcing, it may be very common that at some point they've had counseling. They may continue to go through counseling as they try to emerge the other side from all this. Is it very typical for children in divorces to need, require, or benefit from some kind of counseling as well?
Well, absolutely, Dave. I don't want to say all children, and also children can have grandparents, they can have friends, they can be in the church, there can be relationships that's helpful. But to a large number of children, being with a counselor, being with a therapist, somebody that can really try to help them go through the minefields of divorce and realize that they didn't cause the divorce, that they deserve to be loved, and that they can love each parent. And then also the therapist can work with one or both of the parents, particularly if one of them is very angry and is not really willing to try to make amends, because divorce is a pretty messy, emotional type thing. So children often do need counseling, need support. And again, I've seen so many children where this has occurred, that the divorce, that they are really pretty devastated, not really sure what to do, feel a loss of being, and we don't really think about it. But when a person is used to having two parents going to meetings, going to games, going to things, and all of a sudden they're divorced, that makes a change. Or we can say, well, maybe better for them. In some cases, certainly it can be, but it's still quite a shift and quite a change, and it definitely takes something from the person. And then I mentioned here before, we don't always think about it, but financially, it can make a big difference. You can go from a home to all of a sudden you're in an apartment or a much smaller home. You don't have the financial resources. There are really a lot of changes. You can change school districts because you've moved. So there's just a lot of things that occur from a divorce that are far more wide-ranging than just two people deciding that they're going to separate and no longer be married. And children are the ones that do get the conflict that they go through. And again, I want to emphasize again, it can be pretty devastating. It doesn't have to be, but it certainly is in so many cases.
Do you find people that you talk with who are now adults, that you trace back a lot of the problems they have to the breakup of their family when they were underage, when they were children, that this either was the cause of or that it exacerbated problems and have continued into adult life?
Yes, and one more, yes, okay.
Unfortunately, he checks all the boxes there. I'm sorry.
There's no question. I mean, some people can obviously develop more empathy through difficult times, but clearly, if you can lose the ability to know what a good relationship is, you can, if you have substance abuse with one of the parents, you can almost become kind of acclimated to being with people that are into substance abuse. You can be with people that may not treat you that well because you're used to it. A girl's relationship with her father, by the way, for generations has proven to be very important in terms of the type of person that they will choose to be with, meaning better self-esteem comes from a good relationship with a parent, which is really common sense. But with girls, with women, it has proven to be very important. So, yes, it definitely has an impact. In fact, often I deal with adults, even aged adults, that are really angry and bitter at a parent or both parents from their youth due to divorce. It's clearly something that you carry with you for a lifetime, and fortunately for everyone, but it's clearly a big factor for, in the country, millions of persons and millions of adults that went through divorce and went through the impact on them personally.
Yeah, it's important for me to make clear. So I'm not telling people who are out there who are divorcing and actively going through that right now. And there are people listening who are, who will be shortly. I'm not saying to you, yes, you're ruining your children for the next 60 years. But there's a possibility that if not handled deftly and well, that your divorce is going to affect more than just you and the significant other. It's going to have a ripple effect. It could. You have to be. I think all of what you're saying here is these are things to be on the lookout for and to be cautious and wary of. Correct?
Well, very much so, Dave, and a lot of it has to do with the two people that are divorcing deciding that they're going to put the needs of their children above their own dislike or even hatred for each other to make sure the kids can have as normal of a life as is possible after the divorce. So I do really think that many parents, I've had this said to me later in life when they've said that once they left and got in a new relationship, they realized that life was not just rosy by changing a partner, and that they would have done well to try to work on things. So I simply work under the assumption that it's better to try to keep something together, particularly when we have children, than just be running off or ending the relationship. Unless there are obviously very critical reasons, but a lot of times it's just people don't get along, or they just want something different, or they want to move forward. I don't want to say that's true in all or even the majority of cases, but it is important to take into account the kids, the children that didn't ask to be born, when we decide that we're going to have a divorce, and look at the long-term financial, physical, just the needs of the children as they grow and as they need the type of support that is much stronger if you have two strong parents that are right with you. Then you don't need all the compensation and all the other things that need to be done as a result of the divorce.
Today's segment here, it's a third in a series where you look at, the problems potential for children who come from divorce. Even if it's not intended, it can still happen. It can occur, and it's important for parents to think extremely hard about everything they're doing. If they can keep the marriage together, great. If they can't, be aware of how you're going through the dissolution here and who you're affecting in the process. It's good advice overall. The podcast will reside shortly at drjohnb.com. We always appreciate the good doctor spending time with us and providing wisdom and counsel, and that occurred here today. Until next time, take care and stay safe, my friend.
Well, listen, Dave, have a great day, my friend. Talk to you later.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll be right back here in the Morning Wake Up, 1320 WILS.